The distress call the galaxy was vast, cold, and full of silence. Stars burned in the distance, but between them stretched endless dark. In that dark, a weak signal traveled, faint, broken, and almost lost. This is Cora Prime. We beg for help, please. Rescue us. The words repeated again and again, desperate and fragile. They came from a small alien world, half broken by war and invasion. Cora Prime had once been bright with life, but now it was nothing more than ruins. Fires burned in its cities. Towers had fallen. Its people were hiding in caves, starving, waiting for anyone to hear them. And someone did. The distress call was first picked up by alien trading fleets. They listened, then quickly shut their channels. To them, the planet was cursed. Helping would only bring death. Others heard the message too. The council races, the merchant guilds, the wandering nomads. But all turned away. None wanted to risk. Their fleets for a broken world. The call drifted further, across light years. Most thought it would fade and vanish. But instead, it reached a world known across the stars, only in Whisper's Earth. The humans listened. The signal was decoded in silence. In the great war rooms of Earth, leaders and generals leaned over glowing maps. The voice of the alien survivors filled the air. Weak, trembling, but still begging. Most species ignored such things. Humans did not. There was no debate. No hesitation. The order was given. Send a fleet. But humanity was not like the other races. Where others would send a small ship of doctors and food, the humans prepared something else. Dreadnoughts, carriers, warships with black armor and cannons that could. Tier moons apart, for humans came from Earth, a death world. A place where storms crushed continents, where beasts hunted in the night, where only the strongest survived. Every child of Earth carried that heritage. And when they went into space, they carried their fury with them. The fleet assembled in orbit, silent and massive. To the people of Earth, this was not strange. To them, rescue meant more than comfort. It meant protection. It meant fire and steel to drive away every threat. Admiral Karos, commander of the Deathworlder fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship. His voice was cold when he spoke. Set course for Cora Prime. They asked for rescue. We will give it. To them, in our way. Far across the stars, on Cora Prime, survivors still huddled in the dark. Their caves were damp, their food long gone. Children cried in silence, and the elders whispered prayers. Above, enemy warships circled like wolves, watching, waiting for the last spark of resistance to die. The enslavers laughed as they burned. City after city. The people of Cora Prime were weak, and no one had come to save them. But in the blackness of space, something stirred. Sensors on the enemy ships began to scream. Blips appeared, first one, then 10, then hundreds. A formation of warships emerged from hyperspace, shadows blotting out the stars. The enslavers stared in shock. Their scanners confirmed the impossible. Deathworlder fleet.panic spread like wildfire. Even among warlords, humans were a name spoken in fear. Stories of their battles were legendary. Stories of their wrath were nightmares. Still, the survivors, hiding on the planet, did not know this. They only saw the glow of engines in the sky and thought their prayers had been answered. Rescue has come, they whispered. We are saved. But they did not yet understand what it meant when Deathworlders answered a call. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Karos gave the order. All ships, weapons live. Prepare to strike. Across the fleet, massive cannons turned. Torpedo bays opened. Fighters roared out of their carriers. The silence of space filled with the promise of fire. The humans did not come with open hands. They came with clenched fists. To them, Rescue did not mean kindness. Rescue meant fury unleashed on those who dared to harm the weak. The alien survivors had begged for help. Now, help was coming. But it would arrive not as gentle healers. It would arrive as fire and fury. Asterisk. The silent world Cora Prime was once a world of music and light. Its cities had floated on crystal lakes, and its skies had shone with tall towers of silver. But now the world was broken. The war had left scars everywhere. Streets were nothing but rubble. Towers leaned like bones of giants. Fire still burned in the distance. The air was heavy with smoke, ash, and the smell of death. In the caves outside the ruined cities, survivors waited. They had no more songs, no more hope. Their voices were whispers, their eyes hollow. They lived only to hide, too weak to fight, too broken to escape. They still listened for the signal they had sent into the stars. Even now, the repeating words echoed through the dark caves. This is Cora Prime. We begged for help. Please rescue us. But no answer came. Not yet. Above them, the enemy fleet hovered. Black warships, sharp like knives, circled the planet. These were the enslavers, conquerors from another empire. They came to strip the planet of everything: resources, technology, and lives. They had already taken many survivors as slaves. The rest were left to die slowly. The enslavers thought themselves safe. No fleet would dare to challenge them here. They laughed at the weak, at the broken, at the hopeless. To them, Cora Prime was finished, and the sky changed. At first, it was only a flicker on the horizon, a spark brighter than the stars. And came another, and another, until the darkness of space lit with fire. Engines roared through the void. The enslaver ships turned their scanners outward and froze. A fleet was arriving. On the ground, survivors stepped out from their caves, shielding their eyes. Lines of light cut across the night sky, like falling stars, too many to count. For the first time in years, hope touched their hearts. Someone came, whispered a mother, holding her starving child close. The council must have answered, said an elder with trembling hands. We are saved. But the council had not sent help. No empire had lifted a finger. Only one people had answered the call. The Deathworlders. On the bridge of an enslaver flagship, alarm screamed. Officers shouted in fear. Dozens of human dreadnoughts filled the void, their black holes reflecting starlight like blades. The enslaver. Captain's mouth went dry. His mind raced with the stories he had heard. Deathworlders, monsters from a cursed planet. Warriors who fought like storms and never forgave cruelty. Raise shields, arm all weapons, he shouted. But his crew hesitated. Fear gripped them harder than orders ever could. The humans did not speak. They gave no warning, no message. Their ships moved in perfect silence, sliding into formation like wolves surrounding prey. Then the enslavers realized rescue fleets normally came with white flags, with relief ships, with promises of peace. But this was not a rescue fleet. This was a war fleet. Down below, the survivors watched as beams of light flashed across the sky. One enslaver cruiser exploded into flame, breaking apart like glass under a hammer. Another ship was torn in two, its wreckage falling into the atmosphere. The ground shook with the thunder of destruction. Children cried in fear, while their parents held them close. They could not understand. Was this salvation or another ending? An elder whispered in disbelief. What kind of rescue burns the sky? The humans gave no answer. In orbit, the enslaver fleet tried to rally. They fired there. Cannons, red beams streaked toward the Deathworlder ships. But the humans were not caught off guard. Shields absorbed the hits. Hulls of black steel held strong. Then, with ruthless precision, the humans struck back, Torpedoes tore through enemy lines. Fighters swarmed like hornets, breaking through defenses. The enslavers screamed over comms, begging for reinforcements. That would never come. Admiral Karos watched from his command chair. His face was calm, his voice colder than the void. They asked for rescue. We will clear the skies. Not one enemy remains when we are done. On Cora Prime, survivors gathered. Outside their caves, staring upward. They had asked for salvation, for comfort, for mercy. Instead, they saw fury. The enslavers who had tormented them for years were burning, ship by ship, under human firepower. The people of Cora Prime felt both awe and fear. They did not know if they should cheer or hide. Were these strangers angels? Or demons? The only thing clear was this: the galaxy had sent no help. The humans had come. And when Deathworlders came, silence broke. Asterisk. The first strike space lit up with fire. The enslaver fleet broke into chaos as the Deathworlder warships advanced. Their dreadnoughts moved like mountains across the void, slow but unstoppable. Each one carried weapons that could tear cities from the surface of a world. The enslavers had never faced such power. Their ships were built to bully the weak, to capture starving colonies and crush undefended fleets. They were not made to fight warriors born on a death world. The first blow came without warning. A single human cruiser fired its railgun. The round ripped through the shields of an enslaver battleship, punching straight through its core. The battleship exploded in a storm of fire, its wreckage scattering like dust. On the ground, survivors gasped as the night sky flashed with another burning light. To them, it was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They destroy them so easily, whispered one alien child, clutching her father's arm. Her father could not answer. His eyes were wide with fear. On the flagship of the enslavers, panic spread. Fall back, form a line, shouted their commander, but his orders came too late. The humans pressed forward. Torpedoes burst from their launch bays, streaking across the void. Explosions tore through the enemy ranks. One by one, enslaver ships became nothing more than wreckage. The Deathworlder fighters joined the attack next. Small, fast, and ruthless, they cut through enemy swarms like blades. They did not retreat. They did not hesitate. Every pilot flew as if they were already dead, their only purpose to destroy the enemy. To the enslavers, it was madness. To humans, it was simply war. Down below, survivors watched the battle unfold in silence. Some cried with joy, believing salvation had truly come. Others trembled, wondering if this rescue was too violent to be safe. Rescue fleets don't fight like this, muttered one elder. Rescue fleets send food, medicine, not fire. But no one answered him. They only stared at the burning heavens. On the human flagship, Admiral Karos gave his orders with calm precision. Cruiser line, advance. Focus fire on the enemy command ship. The humans did not waste words. They did not gloat or mock. They moved with cold, mechanical discipline. Each strike was clean. Each kill was final. The enslaver commander screamed into his comms, "We surrender. Stop firing. We surrender." But the humans ignored him. Surrender meant nothing to them. These were slavers, murderers, and oppressors. To Deathworlders, such beings deserved no mercy. The human fleet continued its advance, step by step, crushing the enemy without pause. The survivors began to realize the truth. The humans had not come to comfort them. They had not come to heal them. They had come to erase every enemy from the skies. It was not a rescue in the way. The galaxy understood. It was vengeance. The enslaver command ship tried to flee, its engines burning as it raced toward open space. But before it could escape, the human dreadnought fired its main cannon. A beam of energy brighter than the sun cut through the void. The enslaver flagship split apart in a single instant, torn in half like paper. Its remains burned as they fell into the atmosphere. On the surface, the ground shook. Fire rained down from the heavens. The survivors stared in horror and awe. "This is not rescue," whispered one. "This is judgment." The enslaver fleet was broken. A few ships tried to scatter, fleeing in every direction. But the humans hunted them down without mercy. Fighters chased them. Dreadnoughts cut them off. Torpedoes ended them. Within minutes, the skies of Cora Prime were empty of enemy warships. Only the human fleet remained, floating in silence, black giants staring down at the ruined planet. No words were spoken. No message was sent. The battle was over, but the people of Cora Prime could feel it in their bones. This was only the beginning dot in the caves. A child asked softly, "Father, are they here to save us?" The father looked at the burning sky, at the fleet of Deathworlders waiting above. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to believe it. But the sight of such fury left him cold. I don't know," he whispered. "Maybe." Above, on his flagship, Admiral Karos finally spoke. His words were quiet, but they carried across the entire fleet. Phase 1 complete. The skies are ours. Prepare ground strike. The real rescue begins now. And with that, the humans turned their attention to the surface of Cora Prime. The enslavers had ruled the ground for years. But tonight, their time was ending. The first strike was only the opening act. Fire from the sky. The skies of Cora Prime were silent again. The enslaver fleet was gone, burned, broken, and scattered into ashes. Only the Deathworlder warships remained, floating like black shadows above the ruined world. But the silence did not last. On the human flagship, Admiral Karos gave a single command. His voice was cold, steady, and final. "Begin ground assault." No enemy survives. The order spread across the fleet. Hatches opened. Dropships and bombers roared to life. Engines flared as they plunged into the atmosphere. Trails of fire cutting through the clouds dot from the ground. Survivors lifted their eyes to the heavens. At first, they thought more meteors were falling. Then the sky lit with streaks of flame hundreds, of burning lines tearing down toward the planet. The children screamed. The elders prayed. Parents held their families close. What kind of rescue looks like this? One alien whispered. In the cities below, the enslavers had grown used to their victory. They walked the ruined streets in arrogance, their soldiers laughing, as they dragged prisoners into cages. But then the sky broke open. Death fell from above. The first blast struck with thunder. Whole blocks of enemy barracks vanished in fire. Towers where enslavers had lived like kings crumbled in an instant. Enemy gun lines were turned to glass by the fury of orbital strikes. Human bombers swept low, their weapons tearing through the ground. Each blast was precise. Each strike aimed to destroy only the oppressors. The survivors hidden in caves watched, in stunned silence, as the very monsters who had tormented them burned before their eyes. The enslavers tried to fight back. They raised their ground cannons, firing desperately into the sky. Bright beams lanced upward. But the humans were too fast, too strong. Their armor shrugged off the desperate fire, and their guns answered with 10 times the power. It was not a battle. It was an execution. On the surface, one enslaver commander shouted in panic as his fortress crumbled around him. "We surrender. We surrender." But there was no reply. The Deathworlders did not pause. They did not negotiate. To them, slavers were not soldiers. They were vermin. Human dropships landed on the outskirts of ruined cities. From them emerged armored figures, taller and stronger than any native of Cora Prime. Their armor was black, their helmets expressionless, their weapons heavy, They moved in silence, step by step, through the smoke and rubble. The survivors hiding nearby trembled. These were not saviors of mercy. These were warriors of iron. Even their footsteps sounded like judgment. One survivor whispered, "Are they here for us? Or for the enemy?" No one answered. Inside the capital city, the enslaver stronghold still stood. Hundreds of enemy soldiers filled its walls, guarding their slaves, their loot, their weapons. Then the Deathworlders arrived. The attack came swift and brutal. The first line of human soldiers marched forward with heavy shields, their weapons firing in controlled bursts. The enslavers fired desperately, but their shots bounced off human armor. Behind the shield wall, more humans unleashed flamethrowers, grenades, and rail rifles. Enemy lines collapsed in seconds. The enslavers screamed. They had been masters for so long now they were prey. The fortress burned. The survivors hiding in the outskirts could see it all. Flames rising from towers, enslavers running in terror, human soldiers cutting through them like storms. For the first time in years, the survivors were no longer hunted. The hunters had become the hunted, but still, fear lingered in their hearts. One young alien asked her grandmother, "If they can destroy so much, what will they do to us?" The grandmother only held her close, unable to answer. Back on the flagship, Admiral Karos watched the operation unfold. His officers reported in calm tones. Sector 3 cleared. Slaver command posts destroyed. Resistance is breaking. Karos nodded. To him, this was routine. To him, fury was not chaos. It was duty. "Good," he said. "Keep pressure. No enemy escapes." His eyes turned toward the burning planet below. "They begged for rescue," he whispered, almost to himself. "Now they will see what rescue means to Deathworlders." The enslavers fled through the streets, but there was no escape. The skies rained fire. The ground shook with the march of human boots. Every shadow, every hiding place, every stronghold was purged out by nightfall. The enslaver presence on Cora Prime was gone. But the survivors, hidden in their caves, did not cheer. They did not sing. They only stared at the horizon, glowing red with fire. The galaxy had told them rescue meant food, comfort, and kind words. But what they had received was something far more terrifying and far more powerful. Fire from the sky. Asterisk. The encounter, the fires of Cora Prime burned through the night. The enslavers were gone hunted, destroyed, erased. Their war machines lay in ruins, their fortresses shattered. For the first time in years, silence returned to the broken planet. Silence did not mean peace. From the shadows of caves and ruins, the survivors stepped out carefully. Their eyes blinked against the fire-lit horizon. Their bodies were weak, thin, and trembling. They had begged for help, and it had come. Yet what they saw filled them with fear, as much as hope. Human dropships lined the streets of ruined cities. Their engines glowed with cold blue light. Around them, armored figures moved, giants in black metal. Each step of their boots shook the ground. Each soldier carried weapons so heavy that a native of Cora Prime could not even lift them. The Deathworlders had come. The survivors gathered in small groups, whispering to each other. Some wanted to run back into the caves. Others wanted to fall to their knees in gratitude. But no one dared move too close. The humans marched in silence. They did not cheer their victory. They did not speak words of comfort. Their visors hid. Their faces, their armor made them look like machines. To the people of Cora Prime, these were not rescuers. They were shadows of war. At dawn, a group of survivors was found hiding near the ruins of the capital. Human soldiers surrounded them. One survivor, an elder with shaking hands, stepped forward. His voice was weak but clear. We called for rescue. You came. Are you here for us?" The human soldiers said nothing. Their helmets reflected the elder's frightened face. Then one raised a hand and signaled. Supplies were brought forward crates of food, water, and medical packs. The survivors gasped. After years of hunger, the sight of food made them weep. Children ran forward, reaching for the packages. Mothers clutched them close, crying in disbelief. The humans had answered their call. But still, they remained silent. Finally, one figure stepped out from the line of soldiers. He was taller than the rest, his armor marked with silver. When he removed his helmet, the survivors saw his scarred human face, eyes cold but steady. This was Admiral Karos. He looked at the broken survivors, then spoke in a voice that carried across the ruins. "You are safe now. The slavers are gone. They will never return." The elder bowed his head in gratitude. But still, fear remained. "Why?" the elder asked softly. "Why bring such fury for us? We are no one. We are weak. Why would Deathworlders care for our world?" The Admiral's gaze did not soften. His voice was low, but filled with weight. "Because you asked." The words struck the survivors harder than thunder. "You called," Karos continued. "The galaxy ignored you. We did not. On Earth, when someone cries for help, we answer. And when we answer, we bring more than comfort. We bring justice." The survivors stared in silence. To them, justice had never looked like this. Justice had never rained fire from the sky. The elder's lips trembled. "But rescue fleets heal, they comfort, they rebuild. You destroyed everything." Admiral Karos stepped closer, his armor dark against the flames behind him. "Mercy is wasted on slavers," he said. "Comfort comes after fury. Only when the enemy is erased can the weak truly be safe." The survivors could not argue. They had seen the enslavers' cruelty. They had suffered under their whips. And now, those oppressors were gone, erased in a storm of fire. For the first time in years, the survivors could breathe freely. Children ran toward the human soldiers, pulling at their armor, holding their hands. The soldiers remained stiff and silent, but they did not push the children away. One soldier carefully lifted a starving boy and placed a ration pack in his arms. Another set down a small bottle of water for a crying child. The survivors watched in awe. Beneath the armor, perhaps the Deathworlders were not demons. They were something else, something terrifying, but also protective. As the sun rose higher, the humans spread across the ruined cities. They cleared traps, destroyed the last hiding enslavers, and handed out supplies. Everywhere they went, they left both fear and relief. The people of Cora Prime whispered to each other, "They are saviors. They are monsters. They are both." That night, Admiral Karos stood on the broken wall of the capital, looking over the alien survivors below. To him, they were fragile, like glass figures in a storm. They would never survive alone. He spoke softly to his officers. "They will live, but they will remember. Every race in this galaxy will remember what happens when humans answer a call." And the survivors, though they did not hear his words, felt the truth in their bones. Rescue had come, but it came not with mercy. That came with fire, fury, and the shadow of Deathworlders. Asterisk. The fury unleashed. Cora Prime was free. The enslavers were dead, their fortresses in ruins, their ships scattered across the void. For the survivors, it was a miracle. For the humans, it was only the beginning. Admiral Karos stood on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes fixed on the fifth stars. His fleet floated above the broken world, silent giants watching the planet they had saved. But Karos knew the war was not over. "Slavers are like a disease," he said coldly to his officers. "If one nest is destroyed, others remain. If we leave now, they will rebuild. They will return. That cannot be allowed." The officers nodded. There was no argument. For Deathworlders, Mercy was for the innocent, not for the cruel. Prepare the fleet, Karos ordered. We hunt. Word of Cora Prime's rescue spread fast. Across nearby systems, frightened whispers rose. Merchant ships carried. Rumors, smugglers told tales. The enslaver empire had lost not just a battle, but an entire fleet. Destroyed, crushed by humans who answered a simple distress call. Other empires listened too. Some were shocked, some were terrified. But all began to realize one truth. Deathworlders answered. They did not stop halfway dot in the days that followed. The human fleet left orbit. Survivors of Cora Prime stood on broken towers, watching as the black ships vanished into the sky. They felt a strange mix of emotions, gratitude, fear, awe. Will they return? One child asked. The elder beside him whispered, they will. But not for us. They go where the slavers still breathe. Far away, in the heart of enslaver space, panic was spreading. Commanders gathered in their dark war rooms. Reports screamed of destroyed fleets, burned fortresses, and vanished strongholds. Humans were not just liberating. They were erasing. One enslaver lord slammed his claws on the table. They cannot be allowed to continue. They are savages. Beasts. We must strike them first. But fear silenced the others. They had seen what Deathworlders did to Cora Prime. They knew no fortress, no army, no fleet was strong enough to hold against them. Still, their pride forced them to resist. Ships were gathered, soldiers armed, war machines awakened. The enslavers prepared for war. But war was exactly what the Deathworlders wanted. The first strike came in the dead of night on a mining colony. Human dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace. Without warning. Within minutes, the enslaver garrison was destroyed. Their ships were torn apart. Their factories burned. The humans gave no speeches. They did not broadcast demands. They simply struck with fury, then moved on. System after system fell the same way. No warning. No mercy. No escape to the enslavers. It was horror. To the weak and broken races who lived under their chains, it was salvation beyond imagination. For the first time in history, someone was not just fighting the enslavers, but hunting them. On one liberated world, alien survivors knelt before the human soldiers, tears streaming down their faces. You came for us too? They asked. The human commander only said, you called. We answered. But others, watching the ruins, left behind, whispered in fear. They bring freedom, but also fire. What if one day they turn their fury on us? The galaxy was beginning to understand. Humans did not fight like others. They did not balance mercy and strength. They brought total war. Back aboard his flagship, Admiral Karos studied the star maps. Dozens of enslaver systems still remained. His fleet was smaller now, some ships damaged, some soldiers lost, but his eyes were hard with resolve. We finish this, he told his officers. No slaver empire survives while humanity breathes. They begged for rescue. We will give it everywhere. They. Officers nodded. Every Deathworlder soldier knew the truth. On Earth, predators never stopped after the first strike. They hunted until nothing was left. Across the stars, empires began to tremble. Some feared the humans. Others began to admire them. A few whispered dangerous words. Perhaps the Deathworlders are the galaxy's only justice. But the enslavers called them something else. Demons. On Cora Prime, the survivors rebuilt their shattered world. Each night they looked to the stars, knowing their saviors were still out there. The memory of fire raining from the sky remained sharp in their hearts. One child asked her grandmother, "Grandmother, why do the humans fight so hard for us? We are nothing to them." The grandmother touched her hand softly. Perhaps to them, no. Cry for help is too small. But child, do not forget. They fight with love and with fury. Far away, in the darkness of space, the Deathworlder fleet advanced. Engines burned like angry suns. Cannons glowed with the promise of more battles. To come, the galaxy had seen their first strike. Now it would see their fury unleashed. Asterisk. The aftermath of war was over. The enslaver empire, once feared across the stars, was gone. Their fleets were broken, their fortresses burned, their chains shattered. What they had built through cruelty and blood was erased in fire. And at the heart of their downfall stood the Deathworlders. On Cora Prime, the survivors watched the skies in wonder. For years, they had prayed for rescue. When it came, it had not arrived as gentle healers or kind teachers. It had come as thunder, fire, and fury. Now, for the first time, their children could walk the ruined streets without fear. No enslaver. Soldiers waited in the shadows. No chains rattled in the night, yet the people still whispered among themselves. "We are free," said one elder. But what kind of saviors burn brighter than the enemy they destroy? Some saw the humans as angels. Others saw them as monsters. But all agreed on one thing. They were unforgettable. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Merchant fleets carried it. Refugees told it. Even smugglers whispered it in fear. Did you hear? What happened at Cora Prime? The enslavers begged for mercy, but the humans gave them none. The Deathworlders fight like storms. They do not just save you, they erase your enemy. The galaxy had known humans as explorers, traders, colonists. Now they knew them as something else. Avengers. In the halls of the Galactic Council, leaders argued in panic. If they can destroy the enslavers so quickly, what happens if they turn on us? One alien shouted. No, another answered. They only strike when called. Do not harm the weak, and the Deathworlders will not come. But doubt lingered. Fear grew. Every empire began to weigh its choices carefully, wondering if a single cry for help might one day bring Earth's wrath to their doorstep. Back on Earth, the fleet returned. Scarred but unbroken, the soldiers of the Deathworld walked down there. Ramps in silence. They carried no trophies, no spoils of war. They brought only the knowledge that they had answered a call no one else would. Admiral Karos stood before his people. His words were simple, but they would be remembered forever. We do not choose easy battles. We do not ignore the weak. When the galaxy turns its back, we stand. This is who we are. This is what it means to be human. The crowd roared, not in celebration of victory, but in pride for their purpose. On Cora Prime, the survivors rebuilt their lives. Each stone they lifted, each seed they planted, was possible only because the humans had come. Children asked questions about the giants in black armor. Who had walked their streets? Stories grew. Some painted the humans as shining heroes, others as terrifying shadows. But one truth remained in every story. When no one else answered, the Deathworlders did. Years later, a monument stood in the rebuilt capital of Cora Prime. It showed a human soldier, helmet in hand, standing tall above broken chains. At the base, an inscription was carved in many languages. They begged for rescue. Deathworlders answered with fire and fury. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see it. Some bowed in thanks, some trembled in fear. All remembered, but the humans did not seek monuments. They did not seek songs or statues. They only carried one belief, passed down through every generation. Of Earth. No cry for help should go unanswered. And so the story of Cora Prime became legend. When a world burned and no one came, humanity had come. When the weak begged for mercy, humanity gave them protection. When the enslavers expected silence, humanity answered with thunder. The galaxy learned that Deathworlders were not like the rest. They did not rescue with gentle hands. They rescued with fire. They rescued with fury. And in their wake, the stars themselves seemed to whisper a warning. If you harm the weak, pray the Deathworlders never hear name. Asterisk.